Right. Some people have complained about the show. Some people think it's negative, and lots of people think it's positive, and it's all about your own state of mind. But one of the regular complaints is the focus on some of the trolls. And I will apologise because I'm going to address it, but I suspect after this it will be the end of it, and we can get back to THI exposing things and also doing a lot more other things of interest than focusing on stupidity. So people have to have an understanding of what really goes on behind the scenes of a radio show. We had loads of it in Cosmic Voice, and that's gone on steroids in THI. But members don't realise the levels of game playing, disruption, and organised trolling is weighing heavy, not so much on me, but more so on my admins, as they are the ones that carry the day-to-day crap of it all. Ordinary people who give their free time to help you all, only to receive volumes of distractions and levels of abuse and barbs at them that I find particularly distasteful. An admin of this group is way different to any other group. They do so much more and have not deserved the abuse and wasted time of people not following a few basic guidelines. And so following a meeting of admins and other people are called upon this week, this is the outcome of those meetings. A lot of the angst against our group comes from our connection to Kim and the trust and our validation of it. And yes, it's all real. But even the original Bubba group was against Kim and the trust rather than myself or THI. In fact, Bubba even tried to recruit me as a way to get at Kim, and I still have the emails and evidence. Please post evidence 1 and evidence 2 to the MeWe and Facebook chats, please. So you will observe the evidence for yourself. But we were happy to defend and provide proof where necessary, as myself and THI essentially became the firewall for Kim and the trust. But the sheer volume of attacks because of that connection is hampering certain development of our group and also the harmony within our group, and wasting vast amounts of the admin's time. And so we have come to 2 decisions. 1. All questions and concerns of Kim and the trust will not be answered within this group anymore. I am asking regular members to direct those posts and questions over to Tank. The reason being is it takes up too much of my time and the admins, and I would like to focus more on THI and the People's Club. And I'm asking all members to address those questions and concerns to Tank and his group only. The reason being is Tank has a nightly show, and he can give you all the details, the questions and concerns many people have, and so address it on a daily basis. So I'm asking you all now is to send an email to speakproject.net and get all your questions and concerns answered directly on his nightly show and also his up-and-coming news network. Too often recently, the MeWe chat and the Facebook page have had posts of Tank has said this or Tank has said that in his show. It's not my show, it's his show. What he says in his show is none of my business. And many of those posts and comments have turned nasty or testy at best. But like I said, what Tank says on his show is his business and nothing to do with me. So quite why I'm being asked to validate it, I've no idea. I put the information I have out on the regular show slot, which is mainly Thursday. And it's not fair I have to spend more time adjudicating what Tank or anyone else says in their show. Our shows are once a week and we no longer have the Q&A section of our show. And that is down to the members' request and largely to do with the issues mentioned earlier. People were not asking questions to learn, but to cause division or drama within our group. And that is why our members requested the cancellation of the Q&A section of our show. At least with this way, people can get their answers quicker, and it will avoid many of the niggling posts that have been on our pages. So any questions on Kim or the trust or doubts, please go to Tank. With that now addressed and those questions to be answered now by Tank, we may open the Q&A section of the show again. Now, part of the many issues we have had in THI is it has become the projection screen for many differing groups that THI has stood up for, and yet too few will reciprocate that and leave us and the admins carrying the burden and the can. Well, I and the admins have had enough of that, to be honest, and none of you really realise what we have to put up with. Be it Kim and the Trust, Tank and Dan, Randy Morgans, Shane Bales, OYM, Circle of White Light, all of which myself and our group have defended heavily, and yet rarely is it reciprocated, and in some cases, with those names, turned against you. And so THI carries all the flack. There are other concerns about Tank and his group. I know many of you have relayed to me. And again, it's not fair that I have to answer those. And myself and the admins have to endure the fallout of it all. It has become a big problem. So if you have issues with Tank, address Tank, not me or THI. Before we get into part 2 of our decisions, I may remind you all of the fallout between THI and the Australian group led by Jesper Ellerman and his Kingdom of Mana crew, which revealed they would attack us, myself and Kim, but not Tank. And some of their people, including the what woman, all left Tank out of the equation, which I thought was odd. So bear that in mind for the next passage. Was lo and behold this morning, what a coincidence, I received a message that is doing the rounds amongst our members from Team Bubba. Quote, you should know that TW has been lying for a whole year about facing Team Bubba on a show, unquote. Well, there's the first lie straight off the bat, as all listeners will know. I asked them all again recently, on the show, remember, to come along with their real names, with Randy Morgan's and Shane Bales, and we got crickets. So there's their first lie. Then they, as part of this script they've sent to lots of people, they said this. In the second link, that proves beyond any doubt that the trust is a scam. And it's to hook people into donating to the People's Club while we all wait for the funds to arrive. Nearly 4 years and counting, it's another RV, unquote. So the trust, they say, is a scam, which is not. Then they say, whilst we are waiting for the funds. Do these people think before they speak all right? Clearly not. Their proof is by stitching, copying and pasting and twisting words and sentences. Oh dear. That is not proof, children. Kim is nothing to do with the People's Club. So there is another lie of theirs. Kim has not received any funds from the People's Club, and neither has any director, which includes me, at any time, as all the company records show. Details of which are posted in the files section of Facebook and MeWe. But the question asked back, given the volumes of attacks by the paymasters of this particular group, yes, they are paid. If the TPC was a fraud, the People's Club, do you not think the authorities would have arrested me by now? If the trust was a fraud, do you not think they would have arrested Kim by now? Oh dear, asking sensible questions. Remember, this group promised to arrest me and Kim for fraud anytime soon since December 2018. 18 months and counting, clowns. And according to them, please post evidence 3. The FBI has been chasing us down since February 2019. And nothing has happened. Evidence 3, in case you missed that. Then we get this, which I said to bear in mind earlier. Quote, and that Thomas Williams, Kim Go-Guen and Dan Lutz are liars and professional con artists, unquote. Interestingly, again, that Tank is left out of it all again. Now, why is that? I can't speak for Dan Lutz. I don't know the guy well enough to do so. But for Kim and I can. And again, I have to ask, if neither Kim or I are receiving financial compensation from the People's Club, where is the fraud or scam? The final thing was, quote, which leads us into part 2. We have been speaking to many admins from the state and country groups. Team Bubba are going to liberate as many groups as possible before the state and country groups get completely drawn into the scam and the inevitable legal action that will be taking place in the near future. Also deluded. It's coming soon. It sounds like the RV or a Drake show. It's all happening. Well, if we had a non-corrupt or Democrat-led FBI, the leader of Team Bubba would have been arrested for pedophilia, child trafficking, and child torture by now, and the rest in that group investigated as accomplices. So we will not be... Please forward all questions relating to Kim and the trust over to Tank. It's only fair. 2. Following now several, and I mean several, elements of poor, inappropriate, and in some cases criminal behaviour going on within the THI state groups, we are sorry to announce that we came to a group panel decision to cancel all connections to THI American state groups. This is not being taken lightly. This is due to many indiscretions, and like their statement just mentioned there previous by the Team Bubba group, basic guidelines not followed, people jumping from state to state, people changing the format of the page and blocking the admins, trolls being allowed in almost every state group and disrupting the calls, people within the states collecting donations privately when all those funds were to go to the TPC. Only the countries outside of America were allowed to collect private donations, as America has its own group and fund called the People's Club. We've had people setting up private companies in our name when requested not to do so. People arranging funding for their friend's company not related to THI or the principles of the People's Club. And I could go on, but you get the gist. This has, over the past 12 months, taken up many hours per day of each admin to manage those groups. And yet people can't be civil, or in some cases we're threatening and or abusive to our admins. And following another major revelation about one state this past week, despite me spending hours of my time trying to resolve those issues, that was the final straw for the panel assembled to decide which way to go with this. So here are the major points of this. Please listen closely. Please do not bombard your admins. They've had enough to put up with. This is to do with American state groups only, not the country groups. 2. THI will no longer be connected to the state groups from today onwards. 3. Myself or the admins will not be engaging any group questions, infighting or attending Zoom calls. 4. Listen closely. This does not mean people who are doing okay and creating projects and ideas that they should stop. On the contrary, keep on doing what you are doing, but just don't involve me or the admins anymore to sort out issues, and look after your group and protect it, please. 5. This will not in any way, shape or form deny or block you from future funding. You put in your applications and they will be agreed upon or not exactly the same. But any indiscretions of people being from another state or not connected to the group will be automatically disqualified from funding. It's been said hundreds of times. The reason for stating that the people must come from the state was to stop the likes of greed merchants and snake oil people being involved in several funding projects, which was what Lacey, Eckhard and co were doing. This has already been found to be the case of certain people being involved in requesting funding from the Create Change group and also requesting the same funding from the People's Club. So now you know why. Although we have never charged for our funding application like that group. 6. Carry on with your regular Zoom calls. Many of you have made friends and discussed many great ideas, and I wish for that to not only continue, but expand upon. 7. This has been done to protect members from potential legal and financial implications of certain people and groups who are setting up companies in your state name, largely unbeknownst to members in the group, and that makes you all liable. And it was not just one group either. 8. If people wish to create their own companies, I'm glad that you wish to do that. Go ahead and do that, but please do not use the THI or the People's Club as the vehicle to promote your own ventures, unless a specific request is made to me and is approved by all the directors of the People's Club. It's now over 12 months these groups have been going, and the lack of following a few basic guidelines concerns me and the admins. Of how can you be expected to run a People's Club funded company if you can't run a basic Facebook or MeWe page without a few guidelines and regular infighting? And yes, we are aware many of these groups were being deliberately disrupted by the trolls. It's what they do. And some people are saying we should just ignore them. And it's a fair point. But largely enough, believe it or not, we do. Only very little comes into the public arena via this show. But ignoring their input in the state groups has led to the carnage in many of them and our joint decision today. Those groups were your opportunity to chart your own paths, and yet the behaviours out of virtually every single one of them has led to today's decisions. If people think that this was done out of haste or because it was one event recently, wrong again. I was outvoted in late summer last year to discontinue those groups as it was bad enough then, and since then it's only got worse. I respected the vote. So like you say, it's not all about me. But those of you who do get along, do please continue. But I'm asking you not to approach me, Holly or Ramona anymore to fix or deal with your gatherings. If you don't like people in your group, get rid of them. If you no longer have to be in a THI state group, form your own groups for those willing to actually do the work and work together. Get rid of the miscreants. Is it sad? You bet it is. But people really have to understand the time it has taken up out of our admins, the abuse they receive, the blocking of them. You have no idea of the levels of that type of interaction, and to be quite honest, you only get to hear less than 5% of it in these shows. I know the genuine THI people will understand, but after 12 months of wrangling to get people to do a few basic things, and practically we had to chase down virtually every state, adding people from other states, several other infractions, enough was enough. And I have to give the admins a break. It's affecting their own lives and their home lives, and that is just not fair in anyone's book. It's not fair, the sheer volume of it all. The defending of the trust, Kim, trying to fix or correct state groups, and the several leading questions of why Tank says this or that. So those are the solutions we have taken, albeit reluctantly, and we go forward as a group together again. I got word about a month ago or so that the Team Bubba group was staging a new plot of taking money under false pretences done by their members, some of whom are hidden. And a total of $1,200 was taken from the People's Club and my Patreon by Bridget Davison, whilst working behind the scenes to disrupt our group and acquire funds for their entertainment at Team Bubba. $200 of my Patreon and $1,000 out of the People's Club. Miss Davison is not as innocent as she makes out. She ran a clown-based page called UnitedTruthSeekers.com, replete with a donations page, and a quick review reveals who she's really connected to. Ground Crew Command, Cobra, Madeline Niatane, all linked via a network of witchcraft, mainly under the banner of the Sisterhood of the Rose. Take a bow, Agent Davison. Our day will come. Humanity sellout. But I'd like to thank Ms. Davison for confirming me and the People's Club that we do pay out to help people, which goes against your fellow group's notion of nobody gets help. Oops. Thanks for the validation. To end this episode on a happier note, the generosity of the THI members has allowed one of our members to finally get out of bed and around on his new wheelchair that was ordered by the People's Club on his behalf. And I was given an update this morning. He is going for a fitting appointment for his new chair on next Tuesday. And all being well, that person will be back on their travels again. This is what we do. And no amount of low-level, envy-based and bitter jackasses will stop that. On an even lighter note, it's come to our attention from one of our members that the coronavirus can be spread through money. And so if you have any money at home, put on some gloves and put all the money into a plastic bag and place it outside your front door tonight. Rick Burton, one of our members, will come around and collect all the plastic bags for you safely. You know, there's a member showing you how he's thinking of your health. But be careful now, Rick. People who help others are labelled scammers, fraud and tiny. Tiny is about the only thing correct or truthful that group has ever said. The truth is marching on.